Joe Biden's projected victory in Wisconsin is being decided by the thinnest of margins, and the Trump campaign is now saying there are irregularities in several counties, raising doubts about the validity of results, something the state's chief election official is strongly pushing back on.
Our election was executed with precision, and it's also every step of the process is publicly observable.
The state won't certify the final results until December 1st. In the meantime, the 1,850 municipalities will first tally the votes, and then the 72 counties will do the same. Wolf says random voting equipment is also audited along the way.
Any of those predictions that you're hearing are predictions by the media and other groups based on unofficial results.
There is no automatic recount in Wisconsin. The losing candidate has 3 days to request one if the result from the county's final total is still within 1 point. UW River Falls political science professor Neil Krause said polls had put Biden significantly more ahead of Trump.
I wonder whether or not everyone is being really honest about who they support when they talk to survey researchers.
There was also incredibly high voter turnout, along with a lot of absentee votes that, according to state law, cannot be counted beforehand. Professor Krause stressed officials simply cannot crank out all those returns quickly.
We are doing whether it's Pennsylvania or Wisconsin or these other states, what the law says we have to do.
Jennifer Hoff, KARE 11 News.
The Trump campaign today also sued to stop ongoing ballot counting in Pennsylvania, where his lead is expected to narrow.